ATP, what it do with your boy Clay More Rain back at you guys with another one. As always, salute to my subscribers. If this is your first time tapping into the content, I always do encourage you guys to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Hit your bell icons as well so you all getting alerts when all this content is dropping. So look, we're a few days out now. What's today? Wednesday? So Saturday, we've got the big anticipated March 1st event. Tank Davis versus Lamont Roach. What some people are calling the fight nobody asked for, but the one we have, right? So breaking that down for whatever it's worth, the storyline we don't need to get deep in the storyline, right? At the end of the day, Lamont Roach, 130-pound WBA champion, being pulled up to 135 to fight Tank Davis to get an opportunity to challenge Tank for his WBA 135-pound lightweight championship that he's been holding down for a while now. Needless to say, right now, I believe in Vegas, the odds are about 25-1 in Tank's favor for him to win this fight. Competitive fight. Most people don't think this will be, but somebody else has a whole different perspective on the situation in Lamont Roach, right? The actual challenger of this fight seems to believe he brings the intangibles that are going to make the big difference between him and a lot of other opponents before him, obviously, who fell short of defeating or derailing Tank Davis. What does it come down to? What is it really going to be for Lamont Roach to actually find a way to win this fight? What a conundrum, right? What an equation to figure out and put together and see a way to victory for Lamont Roach. Well, I'll say this here. Watching Lamont Roach, doing a little bit of film study that we have out there for Lamont. Lamont does have a pretty extensive record coming into this fight. What's Lamont's record coming into this fight? Let's take a look at it. Thought I knew it, but I know he's obviously has one fight that he's lost clearly against Jamel Herring. All right, so look, 25 wins, 10 wins coming by knockout, 1 defeat, and we know that's to Jamel Herring in a very close decision. Some people might even think that Lamont really could have won that fight, right? So for all intent and purposes, Lamont Roach is a special enough fighter to be undefeated at this point, to carry himself to a point to where he's become a champion at 130 pounds. Now, Lamont at a 25 and 10 knockouts, sitting in about a 40% knockout ratio at 130 pounds, hasn't been able to really manifest that many stoppages. I mean, his last fight against Fergal McCrory, he did end up winning that fight via TKO on an eighth round out of 12-round fight. Fought that fight on Pro Box, and before that, the last time he had a stoppage was against Daniel Rosas, second round stoppage back in 2021. Stopped him, right? In between that time, just unanimous decisions and a split decision with Hector Luis Garcia, the shared opponent between Tank Davis and himself. Hector Luis Garcia was the fighter, if you guys don't remember, who Gervonta hit so hard he went blind, right? Couldn't see, at least for that night. Lamont Roach went ahead and fought him for his at the time, because he was also brought up from the 130 as a WBA champion after he took the belt from Chris Colbert. Fought against Lamont Roach, and Lamont Roach was able to beat him in a split decision. A fight that he really rallied towards. I don't say he rallied towards the end. It was a good fight, but at the end of the day, a split decision and Hector Garcia being knocked down in the 12th round, you can take from it what you would like to take from it. This next fight going to be against Gervonta Tank Davis, a fighter who's got a high 90%. Let's see what Gervonta Tank Davis's record, sitting at 30 wins, 0 losses, 28 knockouts. This guy's got a 93+% knockout ratio. So what does Lamont Roach bring? What intangible does Lamont Roach bring to the table that makes this fight an interesting fight, a competitive fight? And maybe, where does Lamont Roach see in a space or an opportunity for him to come out victorious in this fight? I would say that ultimately, from what we've seen of Lamont Roach, he would have to be a fighter who has more wrinkles to his game than what we've seen, right? Lamont Roach would have to bring a certain amount of adversity to this fight with Gervonta Tank Davis that we've never seen Gervonta Tank Davis been in front of, and B, really never seen Lamont Roach apply as far as a strategy, right? Like the way that he fought Hector Garcia, does that give him a win over Tank Davis? The way, the way that he fought, Fergal McCrory when he stopped him, does that stop Tank Davis or Angel Rodriguez or Rene Alvarado or Danielle Rosas, like all these different fighters, the way that you've seen Lamont Roach fight these fighters, is this strategy or approach or any of those approaches going to translate into something that can effectively derail Tank Davis? I don't think so. Tank Davis, a very cerebral fighter, well calculated, well thought out, high IQ, underrated IQ fighter who obviously follows up a lot of that boxing ability with punching ability, able to go ahead and bring a lot of power and deliver a lot of power in his shots. Very selective shot thrower, though, not a volume puncher, obviously, and also not necessarily as much of a pressure fighter as most people would, believe him to be, being his knockout ratio. He's actually very patient. He'll wait you out, read you data, process the data, and ultimately set up a strategy as he's fighting you to implement in the game, or a strategy that he's waiting to come together as he's fighting you. He's setting you up so that he can put you away. Gervonta, you look at his record, isn't the type of person who really likes to play the games with judges per se, as far as getting decisions. So he does fight very confidently, as Gervonta is also known for giving up a lot of early rounds in most of his fights, or at least in a lot of his fights, being that he doesn't plan on going to the judges. It's simply going to be a set up from the beginning to ultimately give you that ending that the crowd is screaming for, that his fans are screaming for. So Lamont Roach can look good early in this fight, right? He can take some early rounds just by, being disciplined and, consistent with an offense, but also being defensively wise. But these guys also share a history, right? They share an amateur history against each other. Gervonta Tank Davis getting the best of him in the amateurs, but still rounds shared in between them could say that they have somewhat of a relationship, somewhat of an understanding and knowledge of each other and what to expect of each other. Now, this is the professional space, guys. So amateur boxing doesn't translate into the professional space that way, right? We're talking about a point system. We're talking about bigger gloves in the amateurs, a shorter amount of rounds, way different grading system than in this space right here, where it's pro boxing, right? You have 12 rounds. You have more time to go ahead and implement a game plan, to watch it manifest, and wait patiently. You can be way more patient in the pros to go ahead and get those finishes that Tank Davis gets. Hence why you see him getting a lot of his finishes in the latter rounds or championship rounds in these fights, because he'll take his time. Lamont Roach, where does he get the victory? Well, a decision is somewhere that is a realistic place for a fighter like Lamont Roach to potentially get a victory. Why? Because if he's able to stack the rounds up as far as the wins are concerned, and able to have a lead that, for argument's sake, we'll say he can protect, then he can put Tank Davis in a situation potentially where Tank Davis may have to become really offensive, really go for the knockout, take some chance and risk, and maybe Lamont Roach can walk him into something that can be damaging. Now, the question is, does the power translate? Does Lamont Roach have the kind of power where if he hits Tank, that he's able to hurt Tank, discourage Tank, get Tank's respect? We'll find out on March 1st, right? Tank has mentioned that Lamont Roach has, quote unquote, deceiving power. We'll see what that looks like. I mean, timing is everything. Timing can look like power at times, and accuracy, right? The timing of Lamont Roach to punch while Tank Davis is punching and connect with something in the right spot on the chin, while Tank Davis maybe is coming forward or doesn't see it coming. As they once said, it's a shot you don't see coming that gets you off your square. Can give Lamont Roach an opportunity to shake the world up, right? Shock the world and derail Tank Davis. We have to see one way or another what it's going to be. Either way, as I stated earlier in this segment, the fight that nobody asked for, and not to, discredit Lamont Roach, just to say that there are many fights inside of the 135-pound weight class division that the boxing space was interested in seeing. This fight, him being pulled up from 130, not the fight everybody was asking for, but nonetheless, the fight that we have, the fight that we get, the fight that all of us, most boxing fans, will be watching on Saturday. Let's see what happens. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. Is this just a wash? Can Lamont Roach actually do this? Shock the world, derail the current face of boxing in Tank Davis? Or is this just another show that's not going to really show a lot of what Tank Davis can do? Another fighter who's not able to test Tank in a way for us to see Tank do something we've never seen Tank do. Calvin Ford says this pretty consistently. I haven't heard a lot from Calvin Ford lately on social media or him doing interviews. But Calvin Ford has gone on record to say that there's a part of Tank, there are tools in Tank's toolbox in his arsenal that he has yet to show the space. He said that the only way we would see that is to have that right opponent who could quote unquote push the button. That makes sense to me. As somebody who watches a lot of boxing, clearly I can imagine that only the right challenger, only the right dance partner can bring that out of a fighter like Tank Davis. Clearly, that's why the boxing space has consistently been pushing back and asking Tank to fight the generational talents, his peers that are in the space, as far as the Shakur Stevensons, the Keyshawn Davises now, the Devin Haney's then, the Teofimo Lopez's. These fighters that we believe just bring these different wrinkles to their game that bring a little bit more adversity to a fighter of Tank Davis's caliber, and hence potentially see the best Tank Davis that we've ever seen in the ring. Well, on Saturday, we have Lamont Roach. Most people don't believe he's the one who checks those boxes. But we don't know that much about Lamont Roach. And Tank Davis has gone on record to say that he believes Lamont Roach is the challenge. Although he said Shakur Stevenson is not a challenge, he says Keyshawn Davis is even less of a challenge. Basically, most of the fighters in the boxing space want to see him fight against aren't challenges. But this fighter in Lamont Roach is the special case scenario who is the challenge. Yeah, he had to pull him up from 130 pounds to make this happen. But listen, not all of us know boxing as well as Tank Davis. That's for sure. So we'll be betting on the fact that Lamont Roach is that special fighter who's going to show us something real special on Saturday night and give Tank, according to Tank, the best competition, the best fight that we've seen, the best performance that we've seen from Tank Davis up to date. Because it takes a special fighter to bring something like that out of Tank. And on Saturday, we'll see if he checks those boxes. Guys, let me know what you think in the comment section. It's your boy Claymore Rain. It's the ATP Combat Media Show. Listen, I keep telling you guys, shout out to all my subscribers. If this is your first time tapping into content, do yourself a favor. Hit the subscribe button. Hit your bell icons as well so you are getting alerts when all this content is dropping. It's your boy Rain. This is the ATP Combat Media Show. At this point, out.